Welcome, everybody, to this week's Breath of Life conversations. Today, I have Prudence Todd. As you can see, she is a phenomenal coach who works with guiding women after they have births, traumatic births. We're going to be talking all about the female anatomy, more than likely today, in some shape or form. So this is all about how we reconnect with our womanhood and how we can really strengthen ourselves as mothers, as women, and how that is very much connected to our bodies. So welcome, Prudence. How are you?
Thank you so much, Abby. It's so wonderful to meet up with you finally.
Yeah.
I am really, really well. It's the beginning of my day and I've just topped up, had a shower, and you're the first part of my day. So
I
thank
love
you.
it. I love it. So as we can hear, as everyone can hear, you are not from the US.
Yes.
So where do you hail from?
So I am on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia, and it is 6 a.m. here. And I live here in a little town about 15 minutes from the beach. And my hubby of 23 years, he works up north. He travels up north in Queensland, and I have 4 children. 2 are adults and 2 are teenagers.
Oh my gosh. So how did you get started working with mothers, with women, dealing with all, I mean, and it's not just birthing, traumatic births, or you cover a wide range of things that you work with in women. Can you dig in a little bit and let us know like what exactly your range is? What's the spectrum?
Yeah, that's a really cool question. It's the spectrum feels like the journey, right? Because
Right.
it's been a long journey. I started working with women. What comes to me is when I was born, like I started working with myself, my own body, and I was very interested in my own body as it grew and changed. And I just remember being really curious about being a woman and feeling really, I mean, I went through all of the self-esteem things that you go through, but particularly after that 18-year-old phase and kind of having my heart broken and really turning into my own body. And I also started my university degree then, so I became a registered nurse, and then I went on to do midwifery once I got married. And I remember being married for it was like 2 weeks, and I came home to my husband and I said, "Hey babe, I want to do a natural family planning course." And he was like, "Okay, great." I said, "Well, the thing is with that is that you actually have to practice it in your relationship." And he was like, "We have just got married." And I had really long cycles. So I was already charting my cycles before I was married because I'd come off the pill. I'd only be on the pill like a month for
Mhm.
my for when we got married. And then I was like, right, going to become a natural family planner, educate women. And I think my first cycle was like 54 days. And then the next cycle was 84 days. So that was a really interesting test for us as a newlywed couple to go through. But yeah, I went from that. I did my midwifery, and then we came back to Queensland, and I was working as a midwife here in our hometown because we both grew up here on the coast. We actually lived a few doors away from each other, but weren't dating then. Um, and I became pregnant unexpectedly and ended up in hospital, kind of feeling very, very ill, and found out I had appendicitis and I was pregnant at the same time. So I had surgery during my first pregnancy, and that just, I don't know, it just took me on this inner journey of being a woman and taking care of myself. And um, shortly after having Phoebe, obviously I didn't work then, and then 2 years later I was pregnant again. And when I was having babies, like for me, my husband and I always we had a chat that was like, when are we going to have babies? Well, I'd like them at 27. I'd like them at 23. Okay, let's go 25. And then we had them at 23.
I honestly, being a nurse, although I will say labor and delivery, postpartum, when I went through my training, I knew for certain, not for me. I was like, that is not where my mind wants to go. I could have probably done really well in L&D or NICU, but I just knew that, like, because I love children so much, for as thick a skin as I have, you know, having to constantly put myself in a position where I'd be like, all right, guys, I need you to breathe with me because your little one here that you just brought into this world is struggling a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Postpartum was too boring for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you both are good.
Yes.
You both are good. Like, I'm so happy about that. I'm so happy about that. But like, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely not my area of expertise in any way, but I do always, because of my understanding of intuition, I always find it so funny when women are like, yeah, so like me and my husband, like we've been planning and like everything, and I'm like, I love how you act as if your baby don't have a say in the world about this, that you can just like make all these plans and act as if like this is completely under your control. And
Yes.
like, yes, there are absolutely some things that are, but I just love your story because it's a perfect thing. I doubt that they were like, you know what, we're going to go with dad's answer. Like,
that's
but
right.
still, I can't imagine for you how, you know, having that like plan kind of thwarted a little bit was for you.
It certainly wasn't the romantic realization that I was planning. I was in hospital in an emergency bay, like puffing and puffing like a horse because of my appendix bursting, calling my husband who was working on the Gold Coast doing shift work saying, hey baby, we're having a baby. And so he came up and I had surgery. But you know, I went on to have a second bubby. All my babies were born at home. And so I just always knew that I was going to be a mum. Like, yes, I had career aspirations and I had no intention of dropping that. And as a consequence of having children, my health went a little unchecked through my iron getting low. I was very, very fatigued, and I ended up with really bad depression. And I realized that. I waited 4 years before I had my third, and then I had a fourth 2 years later again, so that my kids are 2 years, 4 years, and 2 years apart. And on the second one I had 2 years apart, I ended up with depression again. And that didn't enable me to keep up my work, my registration. And I ended up, you know, just totally in survival mode, taking care of myself and my children. And that was my journey. And so I just really dedicated myself to that and worked my way through that depression and healing myself. And during that time, this is, you know, it feels like a long-winded answer to your question, but the journey really helped me to see women's pain and what they were experiencing in their body. And so I have such a deep compassion for so many areas of womanhood because I suffered a lot in my body, not through scarring or physical tearing or anything with the births, but my body, I grew very big babies. They were over 9-10 pound. One of them was born posterior, and I had a scan once that said that the ligaments on my pelvis looked like that of an AFL player.
Oh my gosh.
So I ended up with separation in my pubic bone for my third baby. And through that and not being able to go back to midwifery when I chose to, I ended up becoming a Pilates instructor. And through teaching Pilates and having women in my classes, and I feel like the midwife is in me. Like yes, I chose midwifery, but there's no way I ever would get away with that. When we had a 2 and 4 year old, we went and lived in Canada for a year. We went over there to get away from everything. And I was at the markets, and of course met this beautiful pregnant woman and her mama, and she was having a home birth and wanted someone to help. And so I ended up attending a home birth in Canada. And like, it's just, I have been at home births since. I haven't been working as a midwife, and it's just every time it's when everything just comes in alignment and I am able to be there. It's not through actively doing that as a career. So I was teaching Pilates for a number of years, and then a little 5 years ago this week, actually, I lost my brother, and I learnt a lot about grief in the body and how to take care of grief in the body. And I stepped away from birth for a little while, and then one day just woke up and was like, I'm ready to be around birthing women. It felt like I couldn't bring the joy to these women that I had before. But then this beautiful amalgamation of grief and joy and suffering and pain and hope and healing all came together. And I just felt really drawn to be like, we all want joy as mothers. We all want joy in our body. We want to experience pleasure in our body as women. And it's underneath the suffering that we carry through lots of different experiences. For some women, they've never had a baby, but there's experiences there from, relationships that they may have had that didn't go well, the way that they were brought up, just experiences of who they are as a woman, or just never given the opportunity to even learn about their bodies, learn about their anatomy. Some women have experienced deep trauma through birth and carry the physical or the emotional pain of that. Some women carry the emotional and the physical pain of stillbirth, miscarriage, abortion. So many women sit down and talk to me, and during that time will say, I've never told anybody this. And so it's just about creating that safe space for women to start unveiling the things that are a burden in their hearts that they carry with them every day. And so, yeah, I have a clinic at home, and I also work online with women around that and offer a few different things depending on, sometimes it's a woman that just needs to chat about her experience, and other times it's a woman who needs internal work because, she's experiencing prolapse or incontinence or painful sex, all the things that we don't really talk about.
Right. Yeah. And strange that we don't, right? Because like that's our existence. That's our experience. And if we're not talking about it, then people aren't aware of it. And I always find it really fascinating when women, get told, oh, like miscarrying is actually quite common, especially within the first trimester. And for people, women in particular, when they hear that for the first time, they're actually like, wait, what? Like the number of times that I've said that to women and they're like, are you kidding? And I was like, no, actually, like it happens all the time. Most people will lose at least one, if not two, babies without even realizing that they're pregnant. And it's so common. And so it doesn't mean that the feelings that are attached to that should go away just because it's quote unquote common. But I feel like if we talked about our bodies, if we talked about women's bodies a little bit more, like what it goes through, how we need to treat it, what's going on within our emotional body as well as in our physical body, how those two things interact, I think that number would probably drastically drop, number one. And it could actually be something that we're like, oh yeah, that's weird. Instead of as medical professionals, we're like, yeah, that's normal, right? Which is sad. But also, I think women would just improve so much better because for them, they're not feeling like something about their bodies has been held away from them. And how do you feel in your power? How do you feel like you're strong and you're capable and you're ready for life if as you go along in life, you're constantly being told things or you're discovering things and you're like, I had no idea. I had
Mhm.
no idea.
Mm.
You
Yeah, it
know?
brings to mind a woman that I supported with her birth. And one of the things that she said to me after, she said, thanks for not always keeping it so romantic. She
Mm.
said, you know, I had these dreams of what it was, and I was with her for her first and her second. And so I really got to understand the depth of what it means to be a woman and to birth, and that it's not all roses. She had her babies at home. And I think that one of the biggest things that I have realized with women of all different ages, and I feel really blessed to work with women, you know, right through to their 60s, 70s, and 80s, is that the the experiences that we carry in our body actually become our medicine when we can look at them in that light. And so women can actually go from feeling extremely broken, not right in their bodies, not the same. And we
Mm.
aren't the same. We're changed as our bodies go through experiences. We aren't the same people. And I think when we go through grief and trauma too, we are changed. And it's about learning how to carry that in our bodies like a dear friend, you know?
Is that how you would say, like, how you deal with your clients, that's one of the like key features for you, that instead of trying to like eradicate the pain or the trauma, for you it's more of, we need to acknowledge that it's there and we need to acknowledge why and find the peace within it, if that's the right term? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm, yeah, totally. I think through talking to a woman, I can ascertain how she feels toward herself, the meaning that she's made about the experiences that she's been through about herself. I hold a women's gathering here on the coast with some other women that's called Maidens, Mamas, and Grandmothers. And at the last gathering that we were at, we were talking about, you know, I asked the question, what do we make our birth experiences mean about who we are in the world? And a lot of them had shared their birth experiences at one time or another. But to think that some of them were like, I've never thought about what I made it mean about myself and how I see myself because of that experience. And so it's really about learning how to have compassion toward ourselves. And we can say we have compassion toward ourselves, but the real indicator about how we are toward the experiences that we've experienced in our life is the inner dialogue that we listen to each and every day. And through my depression and healing that, I became very highly aware of the voice that was talking to me and what did she sound like. And it's always been an alarm bell for me since I healed, that when that inner voice is critical and not compassionate, there's something amiss for me. Or if it becomes blaming of other people around me, or if I start sourcing external reasons as to why I'm not experiencing joy in my life, it's always within me to heal that. And so, you know, it's gone from constantly, you know, telling myself that, or questioning the inner turmoil that comes with constantly questioning. I remember my dad always saying to me, being in place of indecision is so unpleasant. Like once we have really put to rest in ourselves that we are okay and that we love ourselves and we don't have to question our choices. If a birth hasn't gone well, or if we've been sexually abused, or if we've had an experience where we've decided that we need to have an abortion, like we can question that within ourselves and what happened and why. And that can go on for years and years and years and years. Um, and so being able, it doesn't happen in, you know, a 5-minute conversation. It comes through practicing skills and tools over and over again. And that compassion starts to build a trust in our bodies, and our body starts to rest. And we stop the questioning. And then finally we start to hear that voice go, you did real good today, babe. like it starts to talk to us in a different way. And that's my desire for women, is to lay down at the end of the day, you know, no matter what their day's been with their little ones, or how intense it's been breastfeeding their baby, or how painful their body feels. And, you know that they have been able to give themselves some time, some compassion, and hear that voice of consolation and comfort, because we do seek it outside of ourselves. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but often the impact lies with our relationships. These situations and experiences that we go through impact our relationships with our children, our partners. And so there's a ripple effect, and it's a dream of mine. I'm going to speak it out loud now. It's a dream of mine to do a documentary around the world of the impact of birth trauma on women years down the track. So that
Yes.
I can show the people that take care of them how those decisions in the moment impact them for years in their life.
Yes. Oh, I love that. We love speaking dreams into reality in this series.
Yes.
We do. And it's so brilliant. It's so brilliant because what you're saying is so, so true. I mean, all of my people know that I'm very much with you when I say, like, we need to understand how our body is talking to us, understanding that the pain, the physical manifestation isn't actually the thing that's how our body is talking to us. It's actually the emotion behind it, right? The energy behind it that has been screaming at us in some cases to pay attention. And when we don't, because, you know, we're busy, or we've got things to do, or we just don't have the coping mechanisms to deal with it, or we don't have the support system to give us that space to do so, or we're being gaslit, or we're, you know, dealing with, like you said, bad relationships, or maybe there's just some serious repressed trauma that, even though we can't remember it, it doesn't mean it's not there. And because of that, when we can't deal with it, our energy only has one way, our spirit only has one way to tell us, hey, I need you to pay the F attention. And that's to create a physical manifestation in our bodies. And yeah, it's not, there are definitely some scenarios where, like you're saying, you know, with traumatic births, I don't think that that is one of those moments where it's like the energy got stuck first. I think, you know, the physical thing that was happening had a lot of energy behind it. You know, when you have a really traumatic birth, you know, nobody plans that. Nobody's like, I'm gonna like put traumatic birth on my calendar today. But what ends up happening when you can't, like, when you're not given the time or space, and everybody knows I do not have children. I've never birthed a baby out of this body, but I can only imagine that, just from watching other people, that you have very little time. You have very little time afterward, especially in most communities in the West in particular. Like, I can't speak for Australia, but I know in the US, most communities don't actually exist. You know, a woman gives birth and maybe she has her partner there, maybe she has her mother there, but it's limited the number of people that can be in the room. So unless you have, you know, a home birth, you're very limited. You then are told after a day, you know, maybe two if you're lucky, to go home. You haven't even really learned how to do anything with your body that is still healing. Who knows what, you know, what ended up happening in the birthing room, you know? So even more compounded when it's traumatic and you're told to, like, go off and go and be a happy mama and a happy woman on top of that, and a happy wife or partner on top of that. Like, we don't have the communities that celebrate with joy and with dance and with song. And I can only imagine how around the world, how if something, you know, bad happens to you, or something that was not planned, or, you know, wasn't, I guess, stoppable, I guess, and how even with the communities, we don't spend enough time really checking in and saying, how are you?
Mm.
And so I absolutely love the dream because it would give women that opportunity to have somebody check in and say, you know what, let's actually get a real answer, not just I'm fine, because you're not fine. Let's actually discuss it. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful.
It's exciting to see through the gathering that I started bringing generations together, how women have started supporting each other. And, maybe it's only happened once or twice that they've reached out to each other and shared, holding another's baby while the other person swims in the ocean, or sharing a meal, or dropping off breast milk for another woman who needs that. But if it's happened once, it can happen again. And what we're also learning between ourselves is that even though we have this deep desire to create community, we don't know how to do it. We've never lived in community. And so it brings up all of these feelings in ourselves of, oh, this isn't comfortable. I'm used to being in isolation. I'm used to doing things on my own. I'm not sure how I feel about inviting people into my space. I know that I want that. And I think that's the same within ourselves. We want the healing, we want the warmth, we want the joy. But if we have been in a place of brokenness for a long time, we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to do the change within ourselves. And for some part of that, actually, when I think about it now on the spot, it's not even about the change. It's about coming home in our bodies and really listening. Like when I sit and I listen to these women, I have to really listen to my intuition and what comes up in my body as to what the next step is. And, if a woman comes and she shares week on end that she's feeling really lonely, I need to listen to, I'm there, I'm meeting community, I'm meeting these women to help them feel seen. Am I following through on the next step? Have I got the resources within me to help them? If I do, great, let's act on that. And so I think the beautiful thing about women in our day and age is that we have the resources to heal. We have places to go. We have people that can give us insights to come home in our bodies. But we're still scared. We're still scared of doing it and going there because it's uncharted territory. And we're not raised in our culture to be taught about our bodies and to feel at home in our bodies.
Yeah.
And that's really something that I love to help women journey through.
Yeah. Do you find that there's a specific way in which you love accessing that? I'm sure you use a lot of different modalities or a lot of different skills or tools, but is there one way in particular that you really love helping women with that and helping them come to that place of safety?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I have the ability to cause a deep sense of safety for women, and that is number one. And
That's how
so
you
then
know you're a healer. Guys, that's how you know you're a healer. If you can walk into a room and shit shifts. That's exactly it.
thank you for the confirmation. There's a deep sense of humility in me that, I just sometimes I'm like, is this me? Like, it's still like, is this what you do? Because it's not just something I just chose to do. It's something that I've been called to do. And so every day I wake up and I'm like, I was just thinking this morning, with every woman that I meet with, there is a sense of anticipation and even nervousness and a little bit of, you know, oh, preparedness. And that always takes me in my heart to my knees. And it always helps me to give it all over. So my intuition is a very big tool that I use. But in regards to helping women online and in person, teaching a woman to have compassionate dialogue for herself is very, very big. And I teach her those tools, like we actually go through dialogue, that we learn questions that we ask ourselves each and every day to do check-ins. And so that language actually starts to change, and the little person inside of her, or the 15-year-old or the 22-year-old or the 30-year-old in the labor room, starts to feel seen and heard and safe, and they come home in the body to this current person now who's whatever age, and I walk them through that transition so that there's a huge homecoming from the brokenness back to feeling whole again. The other thing I would say is either in person doing internal work with a woman or teaching a woman how to do that for herself, because the portal that we have through our pelvis, through our vagina to the container that holds everything sacred within our body, our connection to our life force, our creativity, our vitality, is accessible for every woman. It doesn't have to be a no-go zone.
Yeah, I love it so much. Everybody that knows me knows I just love this conversation so much because you're speaking my language. You're truly, and the work that you do is so powerful, and it's so needed and necessary in the world, because there aren't enough people who are so in tune with their own intuition that they're then being able to use that and really funnel it into how they're communicating in the way in which they're shifting energy in a room to help people really truly understand that it's okay, that it's all okay. The situation may not be ideal, but like everything can be negotiated. Everything can be settled, everything can be worked through. And obviously there's like some work to be done, and that is another really beautiful aspect of your work, is that you're telling these women and these families they don't have to do it alone. That there is and there are people who are here to help and to allow for somebody who's going through it, somebody who's a new mom, somebody who's a woman who's just really struggling, to be able to have that moment where they feel safe and seen and heard and regarded as a human. All right, sweet. So where can we find you? Where can we work with you?
Awesome. Well, you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram account is Your Womanhood. I'm also on Facebook under Prudence Todd. And if anyone would like to reach out to me, they're just more than welcome to send me a DM, either through Instagram or on Facebook. And I do have a specialized birth trauma group that I run that's got a lot of resources, a lot of videos in there. And they can find that through my Prudence Todd Facebook page. And yeah, anyone that wants to reach out to me, I offer a 30-minute free chat. If they are wondering if I'm the right person to work with, they can chat with me. And often women just feel so much relief just even from that 30-minute chat. Just, having somewhere to go and chat.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. Guys, I will make sure to have all of Prudence's things, all of her links, all of her follows and things like that down in the show notes below. Prudence, thank you so much for being here, for telling us your story, for honoring us with that, for blessing us with your presence and your gifts in this world. They are so needed. I am so glad that you're doing this. I cannot thank you enough, as somebody who that part of healing was not in my calling. So I love it that there are healers out there like you, and that you are doing this work so brilliantly. Guys, this has been another very brilliant Breath of Life Conversations. I hope that you will like, comment, subscribe, and share this with all of the people in your life. It is necessary to know this information, to understand that there are people out here like Prudence doing the work, who are showing up for their people and showing up for the world in this way. And I hope that you have enjoyed this conversation, that you've learned something here today. I will, of course, be back next week with all of manner of things. I believe the next one on the docket is my mom. So awesome. you'll get to finally meet the person I use her name most often in my life. So, you guys, thank you so much once again for being here with us. I hope that you have enjoyed this, and I will see you next time for the next Breath of Life Conversations. Thanks, Prudence.
Bye, Abby.